Hi, superfans. This month, I'm not going to be able to do a live stream, and it's just been a bit of more chaotic of a month than I realized it would be. And I have a sneaking suspicion that the next few months are going to be a little more chaotic. So you're getting a private video that you can watch and comment on within the Patreon platform. So, what has been going on that has made things so chaotic? I mean, long story short, I'm the chaos in my chaos. Mostly because I am in a very high energy moment, which is partially that it is spring and summer. My workload at the library is slightly less stressful, and I have a lot of ideas that I want to make reality. So here are some of those things in their relation to the romance books. Start with the Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging rewrite. When I last updated you, I don't know what I last updated you on. Mostly updated Emily. So this past month, for about a month, my editor has had the rewrite. It started in third person. I began working as I reread it last year to just make simple edits and realized it needed a whole entire rewrite from a completely different point of view, going from third to first person, which meant I had to get back in Elizabeth's head, which was a fun place to be, but it was an extensive rewrite because you have to change every single moment where she is referred to on the third person, and not just her name, but her versus me versus I versus she. It was a lot of work. And I realized when I was done, I needed more than a editor to quickly come in and clean up the language and punctuation and other copy issues. I needed a developmental edit to make sure I hit not only all the beats, but got the right description of the scenery and the emotions and the senses and all of it. Fortunately, Beth, the woman who edits this series for me, had a free month. And I promptly worked extra quickly to get it out and into her hands. So she did a read through, gave me some developmental edits, and earlier this week, I sent it back to her, and she will take another month to do line edits, which means she's going to make sure it reads well. Then I will make more edits, then there will be a proofread, and then it will be republished. And I will probably do some sort of sale or event to republish it. And there's a very good chance I will offer it to all Patreon subscribers as a get your updated copy, but also some other things. So that's the status of that. Next, haikus. I have a bunch. I'm just going to pick one. We will get to how I write them and letting you have a input into which images I write haikus about moving forward, but I'm not there yet. And I have enough in the backlog that I can just pull from what I have. I'm sorry, this is just a little bit more than I currently have the capacity for, and it's because I have so many ideas and so many things I want to do that it's like, how do I balance all of this? And I'm still working that out. Citation needed. Speaking of things that I want to do right now and I need to maybe slow down on, I don't know. I am doing the first edit of Citation Needed this month. I'm about halfway through as I'm recording this. But this weekend, I am doing a deep dive into attempting to finish it. And then I can rewrite it. It's been a delight to revisit this from a very different point of view. I've figured out sort of the central theme of the story. It's about our strengths versus our deficits and how problematic it can be when we only focus on our weaknesses and deficits, and how harmful that can be to our relationships when we don't acknowledge strengths that we bring to the table. It's a lot of heavy lifting. I know where the story is. Side note, we're bringing Elizabeth from Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging into this. Carrie Woodhouse is coming into this. The Bennets will probably make an appearance. Lois Fairfax is our main protagonist this time, which is different because she has been... a door is going to close shortly. I have the windows open, which is why like my hair is gonna blow every so often, or you might hear rustling in the background. It's beautiful out, so I have windows open on both sides of me. in the room that I'm in my dining room, but there's a door right here that takes you down to the first floor of my home. You have to see the house to understand it. It's about to close. I normally keep it open to keep the airflow. So if you hear it close, that is what is happening. I am in a different room than I'm normally in for making videos and talking on Zooms. Anyway, so Lois Fairfax is our antagonist this time, which is a different... I want her to be a very complex character. I want you to love her in one book, question her in another, and maybe hate her this time, because she is complex. She's wonderful to write, but she's frustrating to read. So I need my readers to see all sides of her complexity, because I think that we often forget how complex our characters are, and that in one hand they make some really great decisions, and in others they don't. But I'm bringing in some more characters, a little more B-plot. We're going to start the Jorge redemption in this book. We're going to talk about that in a second, because this is my list of things. This is just Jorge. The things I want to share with you. Because his little story is dominating my brain. So, citation needed, well underway. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I'm going to be able to get this to my editor a little earlier than January. My hope was to, we're going to finish up Sweeten Up Jenny Darcy in December as a read. Then I was going to share some the bonus stories that you are all reading with the reader, the reader level, while the fans and the super fans get some newer ones that I will be writing periodically, and I'm still writing. So there will be content that you all will get, but the reader, the very base level, will get the ones you've read months before. And then there might be like a couple months of that before we launch into Citation Needed, around the same time we started Sweeten Up Jenny Darcy. But if I move as quickly as I'm hoping, we might be able to start Citation Needed in January, instead of dealing with the short stories, which mean the short stories will be something to discuss how those get shared with the readers. But that is a discussion for future us, not today us. But in November, I start writing Tilney's Haunted Farm, which is the final book in this series. And that is a surreal, somewhat frightening moment to realize that this series is almost over, and there's still so much to tell, which is why the Ladies of the Table, the knitting books, will be the next spin-off series. Yom Tov technically is a spin-off series, but this will be a more Lecoq-based spin-off series where we will visit the women from Unraveling Carrie Woodhouse who sit and knit together. And I have the list of the ladies and their stories. And this is where Jorge comes in. So he's being added to Citation Needed in a very minimal way. There's going to be references. My idea for the plot, and tell me your thoughts about this in the feedback. This will be his story. We know in Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging, we're introduced to the fact that he is very attractive, very persuasive, and has money problems in that he wants more than he has, and thus is willing to do things to get more. Problematic things. So he's in prison now. He's going to get out of prison on a work release, and he's going to be hired by Andrea. Andrea is Bart's fiance, the financial advisor. I want to play with the idea of his romantic partner will be older, financially savvy, but still potentially scammable, and acknowledges that she is scammable and thus does a lot of work to avoid being scammed or to minimize the impact it has. She is very careful with her money, and since she is in the finance industry, she has knowledge, but it also means she'll butt heads with Andrea. So who in the Ladies of the Table is ripe for this story? And I have 3 women in mind. All are Maureen Woodhouse's age, and Lois Fairfax is one of them. Will she be the right fit? I don't know. I'm willing to play it out. We will be discussing this in later months. But his new partner needs to be financially savvy. The work release program is going to be with Andrea, where he works with her and for her in her financial advising capacity. It makes her look good for hiring an ex-con and taking a chance, and that's really what she's doing. But in his story, there's going to be a lot of, especially as we end the 21st Century Austen series and move into the Ladies of the Table, he's going to stumble a lot in this first half. Until we get to his book, where he is our romantic hero, he's going to spend a lot of that time stumbling. So Andrea is going to be asking him to do these morally and legally questionable things. And he's going to struggle with his instinct to do them because he's never had a problem before, but also the work he's been trying to do to not be so traumatizing to other people and to be so harmful to other people's finances. He's going to be, in the beginning, he's going to be with a therapist that is court mandated. And she is going to require him to write apology letters, primarily to Ginny and Lydia and Mrs. C. And we're going to see the letters to one of the two younger women. And it's going to be incredibly insincere, passive-aggressive, the apology that's not an apology, and him expecting something in response from them and not getting it. So it's going to allow him to have those trips and falls along the way that he needs to figure out. And every time he has another trip and fall, his romantic partner, whomever she is going to be like, I can't be this with you if you're going to be this kind of man, even just a sexual relationship. This story will start having heavier heat than the Austen series does, but probably not as heavy as the Yom Tov does. I do want degrees of heat across these stories so that people who have different sexual heat preferences can find stories that work for them. So Yom Tov was exceptionally spicy. This will be sort of in the middle. Like, there might be a little more on the page than the Austen series, but while he is still in the Austen series, there will not be any. We will, because he is a C plot, not even a B plot, it will address that. So his midpoint, his overarching multi-book story arc will find him at the midpoint where he has to decide who he is. Is he the thief? Is he the scammer? Or is he the man who is trying to fix what he has done? And it will be marked by letters to both Ginny and Lydia, where he is sincerely apologizing, hoping the best for their lives, acknowledging they may never read this, and that he has no expectation of a response. And he also apologizes for the shitty letters he wrote before. And there might be some short stories around both of their responses to the letters. I don't know if it will be integrated into the books, but they will have responses, and both opposite responses. One will feel the desire to acknowledge and forgive, if not forget. The other will not want to have anything to do with it. So, which is which? I think I know. But we have to see him make the amends, and my hope is that he will openly make the decision when he no longer is legally required to work for Andrea to turn around to Lisa and ask for help. And Lisa presents him with an opportunity to work with people who are struggling financially in Lecoq, or small business owners, and how to watch out for scams. I really want to transition him from scammer to someone advocating to protect the scammed. And if you've read Open to Negotiation, which is Lydia's follow-up story that's in Dangerous Curves Ahead, the short story anthology, and also in the newest version of A Little More Phi Alpha Pi, she ends up with a man who deals in this bubble. So that might be a hint of who's willing to forgive him and who is not willing to forgive him. So he's going to have to make amends, and it's going to have to happen with Mrs. C too, which might prompt some movement on the Cullen-Charlotte marriage. It's not in good shape, people. You'll see it as we get into Sweeten Up Ginny Darcy. He's on shaky grounds. And I pulled that out a little more in Pride, Prejudice, and Pledging's rewrite, knowing where they're heading. Anyway, so that's the Jorge plot. And this is why I'm feeling overwhelmed. I really want to start writing this now. I want to just write the Tilney Haunted Farm, phone it in, let you all read it, wrap up the series, and then get into the next thing. But there's so much else that I'm working on. Outside of the romance bubble, I'm getting ready to edit the next horror book, hopefully starting this month, because my editor wants to read it in April. That's when August. That's when she has time, which means I have to move a little faster than I anticipated. I thought I could push it out. It's not as bad as my anxiety is telling me it is. It just needs some focus. And then in July, for Camp National Novel Writing Month, I'm starting the second book in the Enduring series, which is Help Wanted New Devils series. And this is a story I've been living with for 20 years, and it can't get out of my head until I write it down. That's one of the things that I often don't communicate well. Like, I become obsessed with these stories. I become obsessed with these characters. And once I write it down, they can finally be released out of my head and into something else, and I can make room for other characters. So for me, not only is there anxiety about letting these characters go and sharing them with the world, but there's also a very big need to do that. So anyway, so that's what I hope. I have so with Citation Needed, it's not going to get my traditional beta read where I call out to readers and I'm like, do you want to read this? And give me feedback. We're not doing that this time because I feel relatively strong on the development of the story, and my editor is affordable with a developmental edit, which is one thing she's done very well for both of the last two books that she's worked with me on. And I want to reach out to a few influencers in the disability space and ask them to be my sensitivity readers to make sure that I am representing them fairly, somewhat accurately, or as accurately as I, a able-bodied person, is capable of representing them. And then I have to craft a statement. I'd very much like their input into crafting a statement for the beginning of the book that acknowledges that I came at Penny from a very able-bodied perspective, and this is an effort to be better, but also that I'm not going to represent them all fairly and accurately, and hopefully they will be kind in their criticism because of that. But my hope is that I have 3 people I would very much like to reach out to once I have the second draft done. So there's let's get the second draft done so that I can talk to these people. So there's all this, once I get this done, I can get that done. And the project manager in me is like, these can't happen until you do this work. And I want to do that work. So I'm recording this on Friday during my lunch break because it's a long weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend, the end of May. And I am doing what I'm calling a mini retreat. Cedric's got the windows open because it's beautiful outside. He's in the sunshine, sniffing on the porch. The windows are literally open. The screens are open so he can walk in and out. But I will be at my writing studio doing a lot of work for 3.5 days of making things progress. Instead of crawling, I'm going to leap on this. But there is so much that needs to be leapt forward. This month is just escaping, and I suspect June will as well, and then July, because here's a secret, my July, here's let's get over educated Sarah's going to Harvard for a week, I think. It's still not confirmed. I still haven't finished my application to this program. It's a library thing. It's a library training for my career future, which is very important to me. And then I'll get to say I'm an alumni of Harvard because this is a Harvard professional development program, not a program that they've gotten Harvard to agree to let them use their space. I literally am going to Harvard for a week and will be a Harvard student for a week. And so get ready for social media crap about me being at Harvard. I'm going to buy alumni shit. You cannot stop me now. This is going to be a bigger deal than me spending a few nights at Oxford in the UK at a school at one of the colleges and being like, I'm an Oxford alumni. No, I'm legit going to be a Harvard alumni. You can't stop me now. And now I will have an Ivy League school on my resume. So that is May. That is where things stand. And I am beginning to put money specifically aside for a couple things. This is the last thing I want to talk about. I'm trying to do some work on budgeting better for my books, across all the books I write, but also the swag. And the catchphrase from my romance pen name is, or for the Austen series especially, is Modern Women Classic Problems. And I have a little sticker, and I think this is, I hope when this goes up, you can read this and it's not flipped, and I will flip it if not. This is just a sticker on a little tumbler. Because I have found my my swag muse within romance authors. Her name is Willow Winters. She writes very spicy across multiple tropes, increasingly spicy. Emily, I think you might like her. Sandy, I don't know so much. She doesn't write much clean anything. Everything has spice. But she has a lot of engagement, a lot of fan base, a lot of multiple copies, like discrete covers, which for her paperbacks, but also artist covers, and then the tropey covers. She does a lot of swag, and I'm like, I want swag. I want all the swag, but I have to save for it because it is expensive. So one of the things I'm doing is setting up a savings challenge to do to save my money, because I acknowledge that writing and publishing these books, I spend more than I make. So if I'm going to borrow from my own full-time job's income, I need to be a lot more strategic about it. So there's some efforts going on, but I'm loving the idea of a tumbler, like the wine tumblers with a little plastic cover, with the Modern Women Classic Problems. And this is one of the first things I want. There will also probably be some lower swaggy things. The stickers for Modern Women Classic Problem already exist. And I definitely setting up an Etsy store to start selling these things. Patreon supporters will be getting it anyway. This is the sticker, what it looks like, because I'm putting it on things that I might want to make into swag to see what it looks like. But that's the catchphrase that would be on everything, because we are modern women and problems never change. Okay, so that is 22 minutes of me talking at you, just like I would have if this was the live stream. Fingers crossed, later this summer, we will get back to live streams. But for now, expect some of these just longer videos to hold us over. And feel free to leave any comments you want in the comment section, and we will chat over that. And I will make sure, if you have questions, that I will respond to them in the next video. Okay, have a great rest of May and into June, and I'll talk to you next month.